Hello and welcome to this Write Book Author Talk. I'm absolutely thrilled to have a really fabulous pair of authors with me today. They are the authors of Putting the Heart Back into Business, How to Place People, Planet and Purpose at the core of what you do. Now, Andrew Thornton is an entrepreneur, speaker, author, advisor, coach to business leaders. Those business leaders who see that business can be a force for good in society. And his partner, Eudora Pascall, is an alchemist coach, facilitator, speaker, author, investigator, and confidant and mother. Her personal values and beliefs are her guiding light in her professional and business life. Together, they are the founders of Heart in Business, a consultancy whose purpose is to uncover the authentic leader in all of us, trusting that profit will follow. I'm delighted to welcome today Andrew and Eudora. Hello!
Good afternoon, Sue.
Good afternoon, and what a lovely privilege it is for me to see the pair of you. It's been a wonderful journey. You've been in my mind a lot recently with everything that's been going on, and I keep wanting to just shout at the news basically and say, you need Andrew and Eudora, you guys. So here we are today to talk about your wonderful book, but also your very important work, and to get a little perspective from you on what's happening in the world today would be, I think, a rather wonderful thing. So actually now let's just go back to the book for a minute, because one of the things I think that's really amazing about this book and timely is that, you know, is what is something that actually you say on the back of this book, which is, folks, Putting the Heart Back into Business, you know, is an amazing book, and although it came out year before last, feels like it's coming into its own, and basically this talks about the transformation that took place in a multicultural North London supermarket, that being the backdrop of this book. And this was something that you two worked on together. And I know I had the incredible joy of meeting your wonderful team at the book launch, who all feature, each one of them, in this book. And I wonder if you could perhaps kick this off, Andrew, Eudora, both of you, either of you, by telling us a little bit about what you did at that budget supermarket to create that incredible culture that you created, and where that came from.
Okay. Well, that came from, I had set up Thornton's Budgeons because I was running a consultancy which I owned, and I had a midlife crisis, and I was bored, and did I really want to do this the rest of my life? And looking back, we set up Thornton's Budgeons to come up with a different way of running a business that wasn't just all about short-term profits. And partway through the journey, I had this realization was about heart. That was around the time I met Eudora. And we used the supermarket as a laboratory to try things out. So what would a business with a heart look like? So we did all sorts of things. We ran workshops, we did coaching, we did training, but ultimately we learned, I suppose, two key things, all of which there's lots of scientific evidence and proof that we could retrospectively fit to what we learned in practice. The first was creating psychological safety. So it's become quite a buzzword now, but ultimately we were creating an environment where people felt safe to be themselves. And you talked about the news. I mean, the post office thing is in the news. We had a post office, so I was a sub postmaster. The Horizon system didn't go wrong for us, but we did have a break-in, quite a substantial break-in. A lot of money went missing, and the post office tried to lay the whole blame on us and bully us into paying over £40,000.
Really?
which we didn't. And the culture we created in Thornton's Budgeons was helping people be authentic, be open-hearted, be caring. Our purpose was we are the community supermarket that really cares about people and planet. So that's what we were creating. And then we were dealing with this entity called the post office, who was all about egotistic, self-centered greed. We are the bosses. We will know you guys are the little people. And actually what's come clear to me the last couple of weeks, is just how those two cultures were so, and maybe the reason we didn't get bullied by them and we didn't get in the position that lots of other people were, is because of our culture. And was just so an anathema to how they were to how we were. If you had a culture spectrum, we were on one end and they were on the other end. And from that, we created the book. And for me, the book helped articulate what Heart and Business was, because it was quite tricky. You'd ask me, say, what is Heart and Business? And I would sort of say, well, this and that, the other. But writing the book actually helped clarify it. Do you want to say something?
No, I think you've summed it up. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting that if you were to kind of look back and say, you had all those extraordinary experiences running that supermarket and building the team that you built, and Eudora, I know you were fundamentally a part of that process, and then when you came to kind of put it in a book and to clarify, as you just said, Andrew, that it was an opportunity for you to clarify it. I remember you, Eudora, particularly saying, why don't we go into the supermarket and talk to those people and tell us a little bit about what that was about, that you felt it was really important to kind of include them in your story.
Yes, I mean, I think the journey isn't just one person, and it isn't just sort of this is what I've done in my life type journey and story. And it was about the team, and it was about the culture that was created together, and we really wanted to show that, because it's a collective.
Yeah.
And you beautifully captured. So Eudora interviewed people in the team, and Eudora's very good at getting people to open up, and you really got them to open up and tell some amazing stories. And actually some of the stories I didn't even know. I mean, Shanti, who I've worked with for 30 odd years, it came out that when we first met, she was afraid of me because I was the white man and I was the boss. And she came from Sri Lanka, where, you respect the elders and the white person and so on and so forth. And, for a long time, she was actually quite almost afraid of me. And I didn't know that. It was quite shocking. But she tells the story of that transformation. We worked together way even before Thornton's Budgeons for nearly 30 years. And the story told the transformation. And I think the other big thing that struck me from the stories was how people talked about the impact it had on their whole life, not just their life at the store, but actually we only have one life. This thing about, this is my working life and my personal life, they're separate. They're not. That's a false division. And there were various people who described the impact it had on them, their families, their communities. And that's the power of this work. And this is why we really focus on businesses, because if you can transform a business with hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of people, and that impacts them and their families, and then all the customers and the suppliers, then suddenly the ripple effect of that, it's the reverse post office effect. I mean, you look at the negative impact the post office situation had on so many families and lives and communities. This is the reverse of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is it that you did, and what is it that you do in Heart in Business to what does it mean to be a heart-led business as opposed to a head-led business? What's the fundamental thing? You talked about safety. You talked about, creating that space where people could be themselves and whoever they are and wherever they come from, but what else is there in there around? I know that you guys are really strong on purpose, you know, on purpose and purpose led, but I guess it's purpose for each individual in the business as well as the purpose of the business. And you talk about that beautifully in your book. Where does this heart led business start? If there are businesses out there who perhaps recognize in themselves some of the issues that they're seeing in what's happening in the post office, where do they begin to make the changes that need to be made?
In my experience, there are a lot of organizations where the people who work in the organizations don't actually want to be there. So we spend a lot of our time at work, more of our time at work really than anywhere else. And yet so many people actively don't want to be there. And that sort of is quite visible, I think, when you walk into an organization. And a heart-led business is very much about helping people understand why they're there, why they want to exist, what gets them up in the morning, and helping them check in. Am I working for the right organization? Do I want to be here? What am I about? And what is the organization about? And happiness, the definition of happiness, is when you are in flow, when you're doing something you love doing and you're clear about your purpose. And when you have those two things, then the definition is you are happy, you are a content person. And I think that's a place to start, that actually, you know, do you want to be where you are? And as a business leader, the people who are working with you, do they want to be part of what you know, your team, your family, your organization?
Yeah, and I think this whole thing about happiness and contentment is really important. If people are happy and content, they just do better jobs. It's really simple. And people would come into the supermarket and say, what's going on here? This place feels different. And basically there's an energy and then the positive energy in the place. And that rubs off on people and it rubs off on customers. So customers may not know, but they leave feeling better than them when they went in. And even if it's unconscious, they will want to come back. And all of this, Sue, is culture. Yeah. Ultimately, that's what the whole thing about. So culture, purpose is a key part of creating the culture, because you either have a conscious culture or you have an unconscious culture. If you want a conscious culture, you need a purpose. So we are the community supermarket that really cares about people and planet. Everybody in the store pretty much could get behind that. They recognized it. And it helped us achieve some extraordinary things. But the other key part is habits. So many companies have good, strong purposes now, more and more. Many companies have great values or principles, whatever you want to call them, but very few deliver. And the other big insight from the experiment, as well as the psychological safety, was that of habits. And it looks like developing the habits you need to deliver your purpose and your values. And let me just give you an example, because this is quite important to explain. So the habit of integrity, the principle or value of integrity, so many companies have that as their part of their way of being. And if you want to have integrity, so let's say the post office wanted to have integrity. What do you need? What are the habits you need to get integrity? So one of the habits is you need to have a habit of being able to speak up, of speaking your truth, which certainly didn't happen in the post office. So if that habit is the case, then the next step is, well, what are the blockages to that habit? So the blockages are, and again, post office is a great example. It's not safe. It's just not safe to speak my truth. I will get jumped upon on high. And the second part is knowing how to have difficult conversations. So you and I work together. You're about to prosecute some poor sub-postmaster. I think it's wrong, but I don't know how to tell you. So don't say anything. And then the next stage is you then get training needs. So what training do you need to put in psychological safety? What training do you need to have difficult conversations? So that's the level of granularity you need to deliver this overall culture piece.
So these habits that you talk about, I mean, they could be quite granular or they could be quite major. I mean, you know, I guess if habits lie at the heart of this, so what you're saying to me is, like, we know why we're here, We know what is driving us as a business, and I know why I'm here as an individual. Now what I need are the right habits.
Yes.
And as a leader, I guess I need to be creating those, but also encouraging my team to follow those habits. Or what can you give us an example of the way that you as a couple might go into a business, as a team, you and your consultancy might go into a business and help a business to create those habits or to create their purpose? What sort of work do you do with them to make that happen?
Well, to give a concrete example, I recently worked with a leadership team looking at habits, and we very much started by looking at what does habit mean?
Yeah.
Why have it? Because it's the building block to creating a purpose, creating a direction, kind of why you're there. And understanding the difference between healthy habits and unhealthy habits. And what are the building blocks? So going back to that granular level, what are the things that I can do every day that build towards where I want to be? And what are the things that I'm doing unconsciously often that are unhelpful, that are unhealthy, that are not helping? So it's kind of breaking everything down. And when I worked with this leadership team, we very much looked at all of those different parts and then set ourselves some challenges. So together, okay, so let's all identify which habits we want to do with the purpose of the organization, the direction we're taking. Let's create a challenge that we can together kind of hold each other to account, work together on this and celebrate our successes. So it's about bringing it out in the open, being clear where you want to go individually and as an organization.
Yeah, and we do that through training workshops, through coaching. We have a measurement model that measures how heartful a company is, and we can track that as we go along over time, and how the different habits are being implemented. And the other important aspect of what we do is we aim to do as much of the work we do with leaders in or nearby nature. And there's all sorts of studies that prove. There was one lovely one I read recently. A group of people, you can measure creativity using standard tests, and I won't bore you with the details of what they are. But this group of leaders measure the creativity. Then they went for a 4-day hike in nature with no phones, no electronic devices, and their creativity was measured again. 50% more creative after just 4 days. So everything we do, we aim to, we're based just by Hampstead Heath. So a lot of the stuff we do, we get people out on the heath, swimming in Hampstead ponds. And we had a client recently, not in January, but in September, and he went swimming in the ponds. And he told me afterwards how it stretched. It was way outside his comfort zone. Yeah. Really stretched him. And then he had a huge breakthrough on something he'd been stuck with for a long time. So nature. Wow. And too much time is spent sitting in hotel rooms and office blocks, in windowless meeting rooms, trying to create strategies and so on. And it just doesn't work. So that is a key part of when we are working with leaders. And there's no set format as to how we work with people. A lot depends. We need to meet them where they're at. So there are many different starting places, but we will work with people on culture, on habits, on purpose, and we will get them into nature, and we will help them create psychological safety. So those are 5 things that we can say we certainly will do. But the actual how, it's not. We were with somebody the other day and said, they've been working with someone and they have a blueprint and they follow the same process all the time. We don't do that because every situation is different and every group of people is different. And we might have the same workshop plan for one group and another group, and the actual workshop will be completely different.
And that's where the measurement tool is really powerful, because we actually measure where an organization is at right at the beginning. And then throughout our process, we keep measuring to see where they're at, if they're growing in the way that they want to grow, in the direction that they're growing. And it helps us tweak and continuously change what it is that we're developing.
Yeah, fantastic. That's amazing. And I know you take people on long walks as well, don't you? I mean, on
Yes.
the nature front. I mean, I always look at that and think, oh wow, how amazing. So I mean, just if you had a customer, a client, like the post office, what would be the first thing that you might do to really help change that culture with an organization like the post office or something similar, where those real kind of you talked about it in that social media post as it being about greed and it being about ego, and it's not about the people, it's about the individual.
Yeah.
But what might you do first with an organization like that?
Well, we would get the leadership team away.
Yes.
In nature.
Yes.
And in their situation, we'd say we probably need about a year, but let's say 5 days away to start with.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And I mean, there are different approaches to leadership. The traditional approach is the approach they've had, command and control. That's what the supermarket I inherited, because I bought an existing supermarket. Retail is command and control. Most businesses are command and control. The other extreme is collaborative, where everybody sits around and inputs, but that's proven to be very ineffective because nothing actually happens. So we have created this idea called open-hearted leadership, which is a sort of blend between the two. So we would get the post office together, and probably we would use the model. We would establish, no doubt, that psychological safety was absolutely dreadful. We would start saying, well, what is your purpose? I mean, the post office should be all about community. It really is. I mean, we put a post office into Belsize within 6 months of me buying the store, because the post office had closed all the post office down and the community was crying out for it. So the purpose of the post office should be about community. The sub-postmasters at the heart of that and their community, not bullying them and putting them in jail. So it's and so that's where I would start. Purpose, culture, and then you have a long process of trying to build psychological safety across an organization. I mean, somehow, it's similar with the CBI not too long ago. Somehow, I'll have a lot more time to answer this question in full detail, but somehow the post office has to be completely, almost gutted and started again, because there's so little trust. And people are saying that, I want to boycott the post office. But actually, the trouble with that is the people who are hurt are the little people, the sub-postmasters.
Yes.
And there was a great article in the Observer the weekend saying these scandals are caused by greed and indifference to little people.
Yes. As
opposed to the other way of looking at it. So in Thornton's Budgeons, everybody was engaged in what we did. Everybody had the authority to make decisions and do things. And why would you want to have one leader, me, as the owner of the business, when you could have, we had 150 people when we had a couple of stores. Why would you not want 150 leaders rather than one?
Yeah. And having met them all, and talked to them all, and of course their stories are in the book, indeed, that was exactly how you made them feel. You made them feel that sense of agency, that sense of being a part of a team, of feeling safe, to be able to say what they needed to say, to do what they needed to do, to develop and create, something new and wonderful and amazing story at the heart of this book. So
just one more point, Sue, on that.
Yes, of course.
I had a customer I met a while back called Anita, and she'd been going to the store for many, many years. And she said the extraordinary thing was that she saw the same faces, because we had a huge amount of loyalty, same faces, but how they engaged with her was completely different.
Yes.
Same people, different environment, different culture, safe, open, rather than closed, shut down. Let me get through the day as quick as I possibly can and get home.
And of course, it really does have an impact on the customer, because, we all have that experience, don't we? When we walk into a place to buy something and we know that we're in a happy place, we're served by a happy person. We're served by someone who's comfortable and who knows what they're doing and is enjoying their job. And the difference between that and being served by someone who's clearly miserable is just, it's huge. It affects everybody. And as you also pointed out, both of you, and it's so true, you know, we spend most of our lives at work, actually. So why would we want to be there being miserable? So just, I'm aware of time. I think you two are so brilliant, and I love to talk to you, and I could sit here all day and discuss this with you, but we don't have all day. But I would love to know, before we do sadly close our conversation, how was it doing the book? And you as co-authors, you know, we often get people saying to us, you know, should I perhaps write, you know, with my business partner, or should I do this by myself? Or, you know, what's it like being co-authors, and how was the experience of writing the book for you?
Well, firstly, thank you to you and to Paul, because actually,
and Bev,
yes,
our editor.
Yes. So I mean, just what I would say is work with yourselves, because the communications were fun, they were real, they were honest, and they brought out the best in us. So firstly, thank you. And I would just recommend to anyone, if you want to write a book, bring Sue up and as a first start. We had a lot of fun writing together, didn't we?
Yeah, most of the time. Yes, occasionally we did.
Yeah,
we did. And I think, I mean, it is unusual because it started as my project and my book, and then there was Eudora was quite, you know, sort of said, you know, the white middle class male sort of writing a book about his views, and it needs a different perspective, which was really, really valid, and I really appreciate that challenge. And so then it was, okay, so how does this become a more inclusive? And I think the thing is, we're both very different people from very different perspectives. And it's just a richer book as a result of that. And I do think there is this, you know, I say this as this white middle class privileged man, older man, that and in the supermarket we had a leadership team. There were 4 of us, 3 women and me, an Irishman, a Sri Lankan, a Bulgarian, and someone from Bangladesh. So what a diverse, in terms of male, female, ages, and sort of ethnicity and sort of country of origin, creates, you know, it creates interesting things. When I ran my consultancy, there were 4 balding, middle-aged, white privileged men running it, you know, and how is that ever going to work?
The real contrast between those 2 experiences, which of course you do tell that story very well in the book, and really it just remains for me to say what an absolute delight it has been, as ever, to talk to you. Thank you so much for thank you for bringing the book to us in the first place, actually. I mean, and thank you for your lovely words there, Eudora. Really appreciate it. We've loved working with you, and we love your book, and we're really, really passionate about the work that you're doing in businesses. And I hope that anyone listening out there who feels that they could become a little bit more heart-led in their business, that they will get in touch with you two at Heart in Business. And you know, and presumably the website is the best place to go to get some more information and to get in touch with you. But there's also that is appearing on the screen right now, so www.heartinbusiness.org. And of course the book is available at all good bookstores. You can order it online, or you can go into a shop and order it, but it's available for you. So please don't hesitate to read this cracking book about putting the heart back into business, and including all the stories, not just Eudora and Andrew's stories, but the stories of the amazing team at that North London supermarket. So that's it, folks. If you happen to have a book in you and you'd like to discuss it with me, I'm always up for a chat. I love talking about book ideas. So please don't hesitate to get in touch and book in for your discovery call with me at therightbookcompany.com. And that's it. I think that's a wrap. But so just once again, thank you very much, you two. And
thank you, Sue.
And continue with the wonderful work, putting the heart back into business. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.